right, hello and welcome to another episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam, our section championship edition. I'm Jordan.
I'm Aaron.
I bet.
I'd ask how everyone's weekend was, but I think we all saw each other over the weekend. We were all kind of hanging out over the weekend. So I know how everyone's weekend was, and I'm assuming on Sunday everyone was kind of recovering from craziness of the section championships at Golden One Center. So I'll ask, how's everyone's Monday going?
Good. Got some much needed rest. I think we were talking this morning, Jordan. I got about like 9.5 hours of sleep between Saturday and Sunday, and I think you got more than that last night. So yeah, we're recovering. We're in hibernation mode.
Yeah, Matt, how about you?
Monday's going fine so far, but there's more to go. So got plenty to do after this.
Very true. Yeah, I spent my Sunday pretty much I we were just kind of hanging around the house, went out to breakfast, but Sunday night I hit a wall and I knew I was going to, but I think I might have fallen asleep around 7 or 8ish. And it was one of those like off and on sleeps until like 10 o'clock. And then I was out until about 7:30 or 8 this morning. So I I mean, hey, you know what? It was much needed after spending almost the entire weekend at Golden One Center, and I joked with some people there saying I never realized how tired I could get just watching basketball.
I will say it's like and I'll probably have a column on this either this week or next week, but it's such a fun time though. Like it is honestly like my favorite thing to do all year. And once again, the Golden One Center, the workers, the section, just the hospitality is great, and what they do for the kids with the press room is great. It's an awesome venue. It's a really good time for fans, for media, for the kids, for coaches. All around, it is a really cool thing.
Definitely. And we're going to be joined by a few of our section championship winning coaches. So, and for the sake of not having a 2-hour show, we're kind of going to reel it in of just really just the coverage of what games we were at this week. Kind of try to keep it quick to make sure most of our stuff is going to be talked about with the coaches of these section teams. But I do want to get in. We've had a lot of section championships secured on both the pitch and on the hardwood this week. Aaron, I'll start with you. I know you had a few. Talk about some of your games talk about the games you were at this week where you were covering some championships.
Yeah, so on Tuesday of last week, I was at Cosumnes River College. I was there 3 days in a row. For Tuesday, I was there for Lincoln and Golden Valley, and started off with a goal first half by Jose Ontiveros for Golden Valley. Lincoln responded back from a free kick from Zach Giles, connected with, I believe it was Isaiah Eberhardt, yes. And so it was 1-1. And, the thing is, all 3 days, the wind really felt like that, it played at least a little bit of a factor. I want to say on Tuesday it was going from north to south, and then it was south to north on Wednesday and Thursday. And so you would have a ball that would be kicked up and would go out 20 yards over the goal, and instead the wind would just push it to where it would just stay perfectly up in the air and give yourself a second chance. I mean, it was really crazy. Golden Valley went on to score 2 more goals in the second half to win. They won 3-1. The Zebras did have a few opportunities in the first half, but they really only had about 2 real chances in the second half. Another thing, and we talked about it last week with the Dixon fans, and I mean, I didn't get to see the Dixon fans, but I'd imagine they're not as bad as them. But like in the section championship, there were definitely some Lincoln fans, and I'm a Lincoln alum, but I mean, I'll hold anybody accountable. They got really too feisty. I think they were really starting to call out the officials, and the officials actually had to stop the game for a second and talk to the administrator, some administrators from Lincoln, to get the crowd to calm down. It was just, I know it's a section championship and emotions are high, but like, I was just happy I didn't see it transfer over onto the field, but it was definitely a little bit it was kind of rough to see. But anyways, Golden Valley won the section championship there. And then on Wednesday, I went back to Cosumnes River College to see Del Oro play St. Francis. St. Francis, the top seed in the D2 bracket. Del Oro, as I mentioned, coming into this game, very feisty defensive team, and they proved it, and they proved my prediction right. I picked them to win 1-0, and they won 1-0. Ironically, in the semis, their lone goal was scored by a free kick, and I believe like the 68th or the 70th minute. This time it was scored early by Kiana Fawcett in the 8th minute. And then Del Oro just played super defensive, and they ended up winning the game. Gray Wilson had, I think, 8 or 9 saves for the Golden Eagles, including an acrobatic tip over the crossbar in the second half. This is Del Oro's first title since 2016. That was when they three-peated in 14, 15, and 16. Really just cool to see a team like that with that much defensive talent go on to win a section title. And now they're in the NorCal playoffs, and they're going to be hosting a game tomorrow in the first round. So congratulations to Del Oro.
Definitely. And hey, we'll get into Del Oro actually be hosting 2 soccer games on Tuesday, because Colfax actually got moved there to play because their field is going to have way too much snow on it. So, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Matt, thrown over to you for your week. I know you were at some section titles too early in the week. Talk about what you saw.
Yeah, I checked the first half of the Vista Del Lago Christian Brothers D3 title game because I wanted to get up to see Folsom play McClatchy in basketball. So I only stayed for the first half. But, Aaron was mentioning the win, and it was definitely a factor. The Christian Brothers won 1-0 on a goal, 7 minutes to go in the first half. Vista, it was their mistake. They couldn't clear the ball. And even when they tried to clear it, it didn't go very far because the wind held it down there, and it just kind of went right to the foot of a St. Francis player, and she took advantage of it and scored the goal. But Vista was going into the wind. I mean, it was kind of a crosswind, but Vista was going into it most of the first half more than St. Francis was, Christian Brothers. But Vista had some shots, and they looked good, like hard shots into the wind, but the wind just killed them. It killed the shots, and it made them very easy saves. And had Vista been going the other direction in the first half, I really think they might have scored a goal or maybe 2. But the direction they were headed in the first half was right into the wind. They just couldn't get anything threatening. And then I didn't see the second half, but they didn't score. So, I mean, I'm sure they would have had their opportunity, just like Christian Brothers did, but they lost 1-0. So, that rivalry could, anytime those two teams play, could go either way. Christian Brothers, I think they started 8 seniors, a junior and 2 sophomores, and Vista started 6 freshmen, like 1 senior, and the rest were sophomores. So it's like, Christian Brothers, senior laden team, they deserve to win, I guess. But I'm sure, the Eagles have a good chance to get back next year.
They were very impressive defensively, Christian Brothers, that is, in the second half. I caught a little bit of the second half getting there early before the Lincoln game. And it felt like, whenever Vista would have an attacker, going up into the attacking third, it seemed like Christian Brothers would always have two girls on them, and they just really weren't able to create much. They had a couple of chances late. They got saved, but yeah, I mean, it really felt like it was all Christian Brothers. They got a couple of breakaways in the second half, but weren't able to convert. But it really never felt like that they Christian Brothers was going to concede, so they definitely looked like the better team, at least in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Vista looked like the better team in the first half, but Christian Brothers got the goal and they got the win. So,
Hey, you know what? It feels like every time those two schools meet, it's something big is on the line. It's more than just a rivalry now. It always feels like there's bigger implications whenever they play each other. It doesn't matter what the sport is.
So
I
agree.
I guess I was close on a prediction I made too. I think I said for the Monday section championship between Placer and West Park girls soccer that it was going to be a 5-4 Placer win in PK, something like that. And I got pretty close, but we'll go into that one here. So Monday night, I was at Cosumnes River College as well. So all of us made the pilgrimage down to the soccer mecca that we had there. And it was what I mean, we knew these two teams were going to be evenly matched. They drew 5-5 and 3-3 in the 2 league meetings. But here's what was going to be cool about it is a win for Placer would have been the first section title in girls soccer history, whereas a win for West Park would have been the first section championship in school history. And it started with West Park getting on the board first. I believe it was off of I think it was 12 minutes in. Erica Griglione scored on a breakaway. Placer drew even less than 10 minutes later because Carolyn Roche got her head on a corner, scored. Then Griglione scored again in the 26th minute. She barely got her toe on a free kick to make it 2-1 Panthers. A personal gripe to this play is I was standing right on the goal line with my camera and got a perfect still shot of Griglione flying through the air, about to kick it with the ball right about to hit her toe, but it was out of focus. And I just wanted to spike the camera to the ground right in that moment. So upset about it. Saved the picture, hoping I could recover it, and I couldn't. But it was a fantastic goal by her. Makes it 2-1 West Park. Then Kayla Peterson for Placer evened it up again. And then Ella Turner, Placer's sophomore, put the Hillman on top in the 31st minute. She intercepted a pass, drove through the West Park defense, and scores. So Placer takes a 3-2 lead into the half. 8 minutes into the second half, Griglione scores again, making it a hat trick. And I'll say this, Placer's goalkeeper in this one, Ashlyn, I believe it's Doremus. I've never seen a goalie. Most people will say if you allow 3 goals in a game, like, you're not, I don't think you're, the player of the game. I don't think I've seen some hockey goalies make 5 or 6 stops on breakaways in a game, let alone a soccer goalie. And she was doing that. I mean, it could have easily been 9 or 10 goals for West Park with the amount of breakaways they got. And she was diving for these balls, just getting fingertips on them, colliding with the strikers, like doing anything she could to keep this ball out of the net. And it was impressive. And I think it really fueled the Placer team. And with 2 minutes to go, Ella Turner ends up drilling one from, it had to be 20, 30 yards out. And it gave Placer the 4-3 victory to win their first section title in girls soccer history. It was an incredible match. It was one of those where I felt like neither team really deserved to lose that one. So you really felt for them. But an interesting thing is, Placer and West Park, let's see, a soccer game for high school is 80 minutes? So they played for 240 minutes this year, and they were even for 238 of those 240 minutes. And I guess, they weren't even for it. Someone had the lead at some point, stuff like that. But they played 238 minutes of even soccer, and Placer just pulled out in those last 2 minutes. So you couldn't find 2 teams that are more evenly matched than that. And yeah, Placer now, they end up with the 6th seed in Division 4 for girls soccer. West Park gets the 8th seed, and Colfax girls, who we talked about the last show because they played on that Saturday night, they're the 2 seed in that bracket. So 3 teams in our area playing in the Division 4 bracket. I guess we have a 3 out of 8 chance that one of us is going to be covering a NorCal final. Aaron, I'll throw it over to you for the second half of your season, or the second half of your action from this last week. And I guess that's going to wrap it up because we're Golden One Center. So everyone else, when we're wrapping up our week, it'll be Golden One Center talk.
Yeah. And I was going to say my prediction was right the other way around. I said it'd be 4-3 West Park in PKs, and it was 4-3 Placer in regulation. But yeah, so we knew it would be a good game, and it turned out to be a really good game. But on Thursday, I was back at Columbus River College, and it was Whitney and Davis on the boys' side. And I really thought this was going to be a better game than it was. Whitney really fell apart defensively in the first half, and they gave up 4 goals, lost 4-0. They had some chances in the second half. I think 10 or 11 shots in the second half, but just were not able to get it in the back of the net. Nicholas Montano for Davis scored the first goal in the 14th minute. And then Simon Vaca-Lorenzi with 3 goals, a hat trick in a span of 5 minutes. He pulled a Robert Lewandowski. For any soccer fans out there, you know what I'm talking about for that one. And I believe it was on Vaca-Lorenzi's second goal. Jordan mentioned, he got a really good photo that was out of focus. Vaca-Lorenzi, I don't cover Davis, but they're going over to Vaca-Lorenzi's running over to the corner flag, and he drop kicks the corner flag. And I got a perfect photo of him drop kicking the corner flag, and it was like 40% blurry, and I'm like, oh man, this is such a good photo too. But yeah, back to the game, Whitney, like I said, they just really seemed like they lost their composure defensively. And like I said, they're a great team, but anybody can win on any given day there. And Davis is a great team as well. I think they're ranked nationally. Whitney is now going to be in the NorCal playoffs, and I believe that they have the 6th seed and are going to have to travel in the first round tomorrow. So we'll see if they can make a run. They were the NorCal champions last year. We'll see what they can do this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess wrap it up with hey, basketball. We were at Golden One. What we see there?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start with my Friday and Saturday at Golden One. I mean, basically, I don't have to get super specific into the games because it take too long. But Valley Christian Academy and Whitney High, boys and girls, both win section championships. It was amazing to see. For Whitney, it was back to back because they're both in Division II. For Valley Christian, one played Friday morning, one played Saturday morning. So the boys team for Valley Christian just dominated Sac Waldorf 72-29. Waldorf's top player went out with I believe it was like a knee injury about 4 or 5 minutes into the first quarter. And I even talked with Brad Gunter Jr., the coach and the athletic director from Valley Christian, who's actually going to be on the show later on. And he said, that's not the way that the kids wanted to win, which is why I think, they weren't overly celebrating when, the final, the horn blew. Congrats to them. It's Valley Christian's first section title on the boys side. And then, Friday night, as I was, mentioning, Whitney back to back. It's really interesting because Nick French for Whitney, he's not only the coach of the boys team, but he's also the athletic director. So I talked to him in the press room, and I was like, hey, what was it like, a couple hours ago getting to witness the girls team win and then having to go out there and get prepared for the boys team? He's like, well, I actually had to calm them down because they're in the tunnel watching the girls win, and they were so happy for them, but they had to get composed and go on to face Granite Bay. The girls won, by the way, 36-33, super low scoring game. I think there was a combined 6 or 7 points in the first quarter. And then Whitney really started hitting some shots in the second half. Harper Peterson finished with 21 points and 8 rebounds. She's actually my athlete of the week for South Placer area. And then in the boys' game, despite an incredible effort from Granite Bay's Yakub Mir with 27 points, he had some amazing crossovers, some huge 3-point shots to keep Granite Bay in the game. Tanner Lawrence made a few good shots as well, along with Trevor Alstad. But Whitney, they have so much talent from top to bottom. Eli Willis led with 15 points, including 13 in the second half. Biggest play of the game, though, came from senior Derek Lamb, who I believe finished with 7 points and 8 rebounds. He had a block with about 20 seconds left to give Whitney the ball back and basically got them free throws to secure the game. And, I asked him after the game because he transferred in from Oakmont last year, and this was only his 12th or 13th game of the year because he had to wait the 30-day sit-out period, the transfer window. Hey, what have you learned about yourself? What have you learned about basketball? And I think one of the most interesting quotes he gave me was that he was struggling to start the season, and I saw him in his first game, and I expected more, and he expected more from himself. And he said that he even went to Coach French crying at one point because of the fact that he just wasn't playing the way he knew he could. And he buckled in and he worked hard, and now he made the biggest play arguably to help his team win a section championship, the second in Whitney history. So huge for him there. I'll get into Saturday right now as well. Jordan, do you want me to wait on that?
You can get into Saturday too. And
okay.
I figured we could just go through and get through our stuff on that. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Saturday, I had 2 games. I started with the Valley Christian girls game in the morning. They played Bret Hart. They won by 6. They almost blew it at the very end because Bret Hart got a couple turnovers and they got back-to-back threes. But Valley Christian still, I think they played arguably their best game of the season, against a really solid, formidable D5 opponent. And now they're going to be in the D5 playoffs hosting tomorrow at home. But some huge games. Janet Donkor, a freshman for Valley Christian, really led the team in the first half. Christelle Williams played great. Callisto Larson was second on the team in scoring. I want to say she had 21 points. And, what's interesting about her is she actually tore her ACL in December of 2021. I believe had to wait to have surgery. And, she wasn't even sure if she was going to play this season. She actually, played the whole season. She was really solid all year. And, now she's out there as one of the 2 leading scorers, leading her team to a section title. So that's the 6th section title for Coach Contreras and for the Lady Lions in the last 9 years. First one in Division 5. Just great things going on over there. Valley Christian School of 110, 115 kids. And it's just amazing how much they emphasize family and what they're able to do as an athletic program. Then the 2:00 game, the only team of mine that didn't win a section title, but I think a lot of people expected it was Lincoln and Vanden facing off in the D3 rematch. One thing I will say about this game, Lincoln fought really hard for 3 quarters. And Jordan, I was sitting next to you, and I was saying the entire time, it never really felt like Lincoln was going to, maybe take the lead or win the game, but they were hanging on by a thread, and that thread was strong for a long time. They actually had the lead at the end of the first quarter, 8-6, trailed, I think, by 4 at halftime and by 6 at the end of the third quarter. But, I was saying, if they could find a way to, not let Vanden go on a run and just hang on and steal it at the end, they've got a chance. And that didn't happen because Vanden did go on 11-0 run to start the fourth quarter, and that kind of ended the game right there. Still, great performances by Maya Hodge. She had 3 fouls in the first quarter alone, and in high school you only get 5 fouls. Coach Avila took her out for about a minute and told her, hey, you need to be smart. You can't get another foul. And she was super disciplined the rest of the game, didn't pick up another foul, led the team in scoring. I want to say she had 15 or 16 points. And then freshman Issa Keidel, even when the team kind of was down after going on that 11-0 run from Vanden, she still scored multiple points in the fourth quarter, had a couple of made shots, made 6 of her 7 free throws, finished with 10 points. But it was tough because just like last year, they really neutralized Katie Leith, prevented her from really doing a lot. I think she finished with 10 points. Still, Lincoln lost by 40 last year, lost by 20 this year. So, great performance by them. They got the number 13 seed in Division 3, and they're going to have to travel up to Chico tomorrow. But still, formidable effort by the Zebras.
Definitely. And for section titles, my teams were in action on Friday. My team actually kicked off the weekend, or tipped off the weekend, I guess, if you will, with Forest Hill. They fell just short in their bid for first ever Sac Joaquin section championship for girls basketball. They took on number 1 seed Faith Christian. The two played earlier in the season. Faith Christian won by 17. But in this one, it was only a 4-point game, and Forest Hill was kind of knocking on the door with them for a bit. And, they're a different team than they were back in December when they met. Wildfires were actually leading after the first quarter, but Faith Christian, the Harris sisters of Lauren and Audrey, came alive. They combined for 20 points and drained 5 3-pointers in, I believe, in the second quarter in that one. And, they really took off. And, Forest Hill freshman Amy Saxelby, she got in some foul trouble early, and that kind of hurt the Wildfires, not having her down there in the post. But even then, hey, fourth quarter, Forest Hill's battling back. They were right up there. And, Forest Hill just came up a little short. I think the final was 50-46. Faith Christian ends up holding on. Forest Hill, 4 points short, but they shot 4 of 29 from 3. And I was actually talking to the coach after the game, and she was like, in a way, like, yeah, they're upset they lost, but she goes, we had one of our worst shooting performances, and we lost to the 1 seed by 4 points. So she's like, in a way, it almost is like a confidence boost for them, because they're like, look, that's how close we were to the 1 seed on one of our worst offensive afternoons of the day, or of the season. So they, Wildfires now, they're heading into the D6 playoffs. They got the 8 seed, so they're going to have to go face number 1 Cornerstone Christian on Tuesday. A tough draw, but hey, when you get into the state tournament, everything's a tough draw. And then a couple hours later on Saturday, Colfax girls clinched their 12th section championship in program history by beating Riverbank. Kaya Diedrichs dropped 28 on them in the game. I mean, just an impressive performance by her. Riverbank, they hung around in this one. And they had a lead for a little bit in the first quarter. Colfax ended up taking, I believe it was actually a 10-0 run to end the quarter. And then Colfax goes cold to start the second. They hit one of their first 9 shots, but good defense kept them on top. And, I heard a Riverbank coach actually, when they were walking into the locker room at halftime, they said, we played a bad first half and we're only down 9. And I immediately thought to myself, that's the worst first half I've seen Colfax play all year, and they're up 9. So, and they're second half team. So, Riverbank, Colfax ended up really keeping their foot on their throat pretty much. They held Riverbank to 3 field goals and 15 attempts in the first half. But Colfax just kind of took control, and Riverbank made a few pushes late. I think they got the lead to as low as 8 in the fourth quarter, but it was much like that Lincoln game of it never felt like Riverbank stands were going crazy, when they cut it to a single digit deficit. And almost everyone who's familiar with Colfax's bench, that's seen them, all of Colfax fans, I don't think there was a single person in that building that had any doubt that Colfax was going to win that game. And hey, they still did. They end up winning 56-38. Now they're taking an 18-game winning streak to the NorCal Regional, and they're the 3 seed in Division 3, so they move up a division but still getting a home game. They're playing Gilroy of Christopher. But hey, congrats to the Lady Falcons, 30-2 on the regular season now. Very impressive. A team that can really make some noise in the state tournament. Speaking of teams that are likely going to be making some noise in the state tournament, Matt, you have the co-main event of the evening in Saturday night's action in one of the most anticipated games of the weekend. Talk about what you saw.
Yeah, Folsom girls versus St. Mary's. For all the marbles in D1, they played earlier this year, and Folsom eked out a win, and they beat them last year in the playoffs. So these 2 teams have a rivalry now that Folsom's, after years of losing to them, have beat them 3 times in a row now. Folsom scored 12 of the first 14 points of this game, and really the only time I felt St. Mary's making a run was at the end of the second quarter when they cut the lead to 4 or 6, one of those 4 or 6, and then Folsom scored the last 6 points of the quarter to make it a 10-point game at halftime. So that was 34-24. And then at the start of the third quarter, Folsom was up by 11. It was really their game to lose, and they controlled the fourth quarter until the last 2 minutes. I mean, St. Mary's finished the game on a 16-2 run. I mean, if the game would have went any longer, they might have even won the game. But they had 2 chances at a 3-pointer at the buzzer. Both came up short. I'd like to think that St. Mary's Jordan Lee was tired. She played the entire game, and St. Mary's only played 6 players the entire game, while Folsom played 10. But Folsom, until the last 2 minutes, they were in control pretty much the whole game, which I felt was just impressive, because St. Mary's is no slouch. I believe they're the all-time leader in section champions for the girls program. But anyway, Sophia Minderman, 12 points for the Bulldogs. Dixie McClanahan off the bench, 12 points. By far her best game of the season. Maybe not her highest point total, but in terms of in the semifinals, Coach Wolking said she barely played. She might have played a couple minutes in the game, and that's it. And here, the biggest game of her life, she scores 12 points off the bench. Cameron Mafua, 10 points. Jada Tupu, 8 points. Ella Uriarte, 7 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Folsom's been preaching team effort, sharing the ball all year long. After the game, Coach Wolking said, they talked all year about how it could be anybody's day. We're a very deep team. Players have sacrificed playing time for the betterment of the team. They share the ball. You never know who the points are coming from, but they're coming because they're a deep team. And that game was a perfect example of that.
Definitely. And I know Aaron and I were both there for that game. We stuck around and watched the D1 finals, and that was another weird one where you'd look up at the scoreboard and you'd see the score, but then you'd turn back and you'd be watching the game, and you almost were kind of like, why is it so close? Like, I think I asked you at halftime, I'm like, Matt, Folsom made that little run, but I was kind of like, it feels like Folsom should be up by 20 right now. And I guess it's a classic example of don't let a team hang around, because St. Mary's, had their chances. And I think I don't think anyone thought they were going to miss from the girl that was taking those shots. Like, I don't think anyone thought that St. Mary's was going to miss 2 game-tying 3-point attempts back to back. It would have felt, if you told me at the beginning of the game that she was going to be with the ball in her hand shooting those threes, I would have told you one of them was going to fall and we were going to be going to overtime. But hey, you know what? Like you said, I think you're gassed when you're playing that long. And Aaron, I think you were telling me she's like a top 10 player in her class as far as recruiting goes for juniors next season.
Mm-hmm.
So a player that
But
is going to be a force
it
to be
is
reckoned
crazy.
with.
It is crazy, Jordan, because had she made one of those tie game, and it's like Folsom seemed to be like so much in control the entire game. It's like, how is this game tied?
Yeah. And that's one of those scary ones too, where it's like, man, she makes one of those. St. Mary's has all the momentum going into overtime.
And
Well, and
Cameron
like you
LaFua
were,
had 4 fouls.
Yeah. What was that, Aaron?
and like you were saying, where like St. Mary's only played 6 players all game. I mean, Lincoln really only played 5 players for most of the game. I mean, they had like, I think their other 4 players played for like 2 or 3 minutes, but I mean, they basically played them the entire game because they knew, hey, that's our best 5 players. We need to try to play them as much as we can because of the fact that you're going up against such a formidable opponent. I was just curious, Matt, what seed did Folsom girls get in NorCal?
They got the 4 seed, so they
Gotcha.
do get a home game, and they
They're
play
going
Salesian.
open, right?
Yeah, they went the Open. They play, and they only 5 teams are in the Open, so they got the 4 seed, and they play Salesian, who they beat earlier this year in a tournament. And I don't know how much they didn't beat them by many, but Coach Wolking said they were down. They didn't take the lead until there's like 2 minutes left of the game, so it's a legit 50-50. They're a great team, but they got the 4 seed in the first round, and the team coming, almost beat them earlier this year. So, it's a 50-50 game, and luckily Folsom gets it at home, but we'll see.
Yeah, and speaking of the tournament stuff, the brackets did come out. I guess we'll keep it brief so we've got time for our guests on here. But I know that there's always the old adage with the CIF, the competitive equity model of, the CIF basically says with competitive equity, we want the best teams to be playing the best teams, and I agree with that on paper. But there are some flaws to the system, as there are with any playoff system. There's no perfect way to do it, and someone's going to get screwed. But I know that last year it was one of my teams that was one of the talks of the town of teams that got screwed, whereas Colfax girls soccer won their section, and had an incredible season, got moved up a division, got the lowest seed in the division higher, and got bounced by a Division 2 school that dropped to that division. So it was essentially a D5 school playing a D2 school in D4, and Colfax, lost the match. And it's kind of started, the debate of sparking of, if you win a section championship, should you get a home game? And I think I've always been the avenue of, if you win your section, you should get a home game. But I think that should be the only thing that guarantees you a home game. And, people say, well, what about the seeding matchups, all that stuff? And, we get into, I've always said, when you get to this point in the season, when you are facing the other 8, 16, whatever it is in your bracket, if you are facing the other, let's say for the sake of the argument, 16 best teams in the state in your division, home away obviously is, somewhat of a factor, but every single team you are going to be playing is going to be a very, 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 very good team. And if you are worthy of being a state champion, you should be able to beat everyone in your bracket, home or away. It shouldn't matter. That being said, there was, some questionable seedings, and Aaron, I'll kind of throw it over to you because I know your team this year was the one that had really the questionable seeding in Whitney's boys basketball.
Yeah, well, and also last year, Whitney girls soccer won the section title. Even though it was a 0-0 game and they won it in penalties, they got, I think, like, I don't know if it was the 6th seed. Regardless, it was a seed where they had to travel 2.5 hours down to like Merced. And this year, Whitney boys basketball beats Granite Bay, beats an SFL opponent, and SFL. I think coaches in and out of the SFL will agree that's probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest league in Northern California. And now they are a 9 seed in Division 2, and they have to travel up to Chico to play Pleasant Valley. And it's to me, like you were saying, Jordan, I mean, you have to beat everybody at some point 100%. And like, I even talked to Coach French, and he said, yeah, regardless, we're going to go out there and we're going to do our thing. And of course, you have to do that. You have no choice. My whole thing is, like you said, if you win a section title, you should get a home game. Also, I just want to know like the justification that they use for some of this stuff, because we were looking at rankings for max preps, and even factoring in a couple teams potentially getting moved. Lincoln girls basketball, even with a loss to Vanden, because Vanden now is up in D1. That's another thing. Vanden moved up from D3 up to D1, and they're like the 12 seed in D1, so they have to travel for their first game. Lincoln last year somehow got the 1 seed when they probably could have been a little bit lower. This year, they get the 13 seed in D3, and we were looking, they should have been probably lower than a 6. And I just want to know the justifications that are used for this, because I don't know 100% how it works. I know a little bit how it works. I want to just know, like, I feel like the CIF needs to give a statement out to people and like explain what their justification process is for everything. I do think a couple of things. First off, I don't think a team should be moved more than one division up or down. I think if you're a D2 school and you happen to lose and it works out competitive equity wise, if you go down to D3 is what it is. But I think if you win a section title like Vanden did in D3, you shouldn't be moved up to D1. Get moved up to D2 and take a number 2 seed or a number 1 seed. I mean, that's we were speculating the Colfax for girls. D4 was potentially going to be moved up to D2 because of the fact that they beat Whitney in the preseason. They got the 3 seed in D3. But that's another thing. I think that they might be looking at teams that they may have faced in non-league action. But my whole thing is like, you go play, let's say, the West Coast Jamboree, right? You go play the West Coast Jamboree in the Bay Area, and you happen to be in a bracket where you're matched up. I mean, they don't have control over what bracket they're going to be put into. You get put in a bracket where you're facing a D2 school and you happen to go and beat them. Great. That shouldn't be used, though, against you. You shouldn't be penalized for winning. And I think that's the biggest thing people talk about is I really feel like this competitive equity model, especially with the way that they design it with the open division, really penalizes some teams for winning sometimes. And that's just not right, because, I mean, I do think schools, I think the number one thing that draws eyeballs is the section championship games. I mean, whilst winning NorCal and State is obviously huge, I think section is the grand tamale of everybody that everybody really looks at. But I mean, still, NorCal and State is huge, and it should be treated with the same respect as sections.
Yeah, and I think it's a gray area too, because like we've said, there's no perfect way to do it. And I've mentioned like Piedmont is the number 1 team in the open for girls basketball. They're a Division 4 school. So obviously, you can't have them going down and playing in D4. And, Colfax is ranked as the number 2 D4 team in the state. Piedmont would beat them by 60. That just is what it is. Piedmont's nationally ranked team. Colfax is a very, very, very good team. If they were to rank teams nationally by their division, Colfax would probably be a nationally ranked team in D4. They're not going to be able to hold a candle to Piedmont. That's just how it is. But I think, to your argument, Aaron, I would say the only way I'd be okay with moving up a team from 2 divisions is if you could realistically say you would be a similar seed up 2 divisions that you would be up 1 division or up no division. So Vanden is a great example. Probably would have been a 1 or a 2 seed in D2. Definitely would have been a 1 seed in D3. Realistically, possibly, I mean, if they were going to say you could be a 1 or a 2 seed in Division 1, sure, move them up on that, top 4 seed line into D1, 2 divisions, because they would be that good. But I'm with you. I don't think you should be moving teams up 2 divisions, essentially punishing a team for winning. And to your point of the preseason tournaments, I've seen how many, and I mean, we've all seen it, how many of these tournaments does one of the top dogs in the section or the state get knocked off early in these tournaments because they had a tough draw early. And then when they're playing in the consolation bracket, they start playing guys or girls that aren't always getting playing time because they're like, I'd rather you get these minutes now and, let you get on the court and develop a little bit. So you kind of have to take some of these preseason tournaments with a grain of salt too, because I saw Rio Americano, playing backups against teams and, playing games against teams that shouldn't have been that close at the Kendall Arnett, but they were in the consolation bracket because Del Oro knocked them out early, and they're just like, well, I want to get minutes to guys that have been sitting on the bench all preseason.
Right. And in some ways, Vanden could be an outlier, because I know a lot of people from around the section were thinking that they probably should have been in Division 2 playoffs, and I think we talked about it, Jordan. They probably could have contended in Division 2 playoffs. I would have liked to have seen a game with Whitney and Vanden, or Vanden and a Christian Brothers. I think that would have been a great game. So maybe they factored in, they should have been D2, so we'll put them up to D1. But the point is, they weren't. So like, to me, like, you move them up 1 division, I think that's what's fair. And that's the thing, like you mentioned with Piedmont, there's always going to be outliers for sure. I mean, look at Modesto Christian. They have a school size of 80, 85 people, 90 people. And they're a basketball school, and they're decent at football, but they're really a basketball school. And that's the case with some people. I mean, my whole thing is, I think I would rather have a system where, even if there are outliers, is what it is. You get moved up one division, you're in, you're a school that's, in the D2 playoffs or whatever, and you get moved up to D1, your enrollment size is small, even though you should be open. So be it, you still have to go win your games. Go out in D1, and if you dominate, you dominate. And I hate to say that. I feel bad for other schools that are in that bracket, but I'd rather have a system of that than have a system where you have multiple teams across divisions that are getting, screwed over, but not having a home game for, winning their section or having a really strong schedule.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And Matt, I know we kind of talked too. I guess the Folsom Jesuit line was one that surprised you, of Folsom getting the 2 seed and Jesuit getting the 3, even though, I know Folsom won the head-to-head matchup this year, although Jesuit I thought was a little banged up in that. But it's something interesting where Jesuit advances further in the tournament. They beat the team that knocked out Folsom, but yet Folsom gets a higher seed.
Yeah, and I don't know how it works. You guys are smarter than me in that, but I mean, I'm just looking from Folsom's view. I mean, Mike Wall's got to be pleased, the head coach. I mean, if they win 2 games, they get a home game against Jesuit, and I would think that Jesuit fans would probably think, hey, okay, yeah, they beat us earlier, but without our best player, and we got to the section final, they didn't. Why aren't we hosting this game? So.
Yeah, it's and I'll say this though, after sticking around for the D1 title, Jesuits fans travel very well. I think they're going to have no problem
Yeah,
for that game. And
yeah,
it's a gray area, and we don't want to get on too much of a tangent on it. But yeah, it's a tough situation because there's no perfect way to do the playoffs, but you don't want to hurt a school like Colfax is a good example of. They've always been a great basketball school, but this year's team is a once in a decade team for them, and you don't want to hurt a team like that you don't want to be. I think the section made the right move, or the state made the right move putting them up to D3, but they do need to start addressing some of this stuff and figure out a different way to do this playoff system, because the competitive equity model is great when you're in open division and in D1 and maybe even D2, but it really starts to hurt teams when you're getting into the D3, D4, D5 brackets.
Well, to Aaron's point about penalizing success, I talked to some people, and they told me make the decision before the season starts. If this team goes to NorCal, here's what division they're going to be in. Don't wait to see how they do, and if they go 25-2, let's put them in the open, or let's move them up from 4-2. At the beginning of the season, here's where you're going to play if you advance to NorCal, and that'd be a fair way of doing it.
I think that'd be a great way of doing it, and I think that should be how they do it, to be honest, because it's the best way to do it. And then you can make your schedule accordingly. Be like, okay, cool. No matter what, we know we're going to be in D4. So maybe in a Colfax's case, instead of scheduling I know they went 3-0 against the SFL this year, but instead of scheduling a Del Oro, Rockland, and a Whitney, maybe you start looking at some of those other teams in the D4 bracket and see how you're going to stack up against them, rather than, being like, we're going to load ourselves up with these D1, D2 schools, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there sweating it out after winning a section championship. Like, crap, am I going to be put in Division 2 for, beating this team in December in a showcase?
So last thing I got to ask real quick, Jordan. So I know that the rule was that she would play for the higher seed. Now I know that I think is the Colfax basketball still going to be playing at Colfax despite the snow, or?
I believe they're going to try to, as long as I-80 is open, but they're looking at Del Oro as an alternate site
as well. Okay.
Should I-80 be closed lower than Colfax?
Gotcha. Okay.
But they're hanging on to the Pucci Pavilion as long as they can.
Gotcha. So they're three in basketball and soccer. So what's the rule for Kaya?
Soccer there too, actually.
Oh, that's right, there too. So yeah, she'll probably play soccer.
So Kaya would play soccer if there is a conflict. I know in the case of Tuesday night, she is likely going to be playing in both games.
Oh wow.
Which she has done a few times this season. And an ideal situation in soccer is that they're up a decent amount at half, that maybe they don't need her for the second half. And interestingly enough, she didn't get to play in the opening round game last year for Colfax girls soccer. She went with the basketball team, and girls soccer was eliminated by Christopher High School in Gilroy. Well, the first round of Colfax girls basketball, they're playing Christopher High School of Gilroy. So, different sport. And Kaya didn't get to play in that game because she was playing with the basketball team. But hey, now she's got a chance to kind of avenge that one. I texted Colfax soccer coach. And she said that all the soccer girls are going to want to be at that game because they all want to watch basketball end their season because soccer ended theirs the year before.
One last thing I'll say real quick. Lincoln, like I said, they're the 13. They have to travel up to Chico. It's going to be a really hard matchup. But, with how battle tested they played against Vanden, if they could play like that, and I might look really dumb come next week on the show, I could see a world where they make a little bit of a run. And, I think Lincoln and Colfax would be a really fun NorCal final. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can see a world where they make it to semis at least. I'm looking forward to seeing the runs that some of these teams can still make.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see it. But hey, you know what? I think for what we've got, like we said, we have had some guests on the show. I think that should just about do it for this week's episode of the Sports Jam. Before we get going though, do we have anything we want to add?
On to
I got
spring.
All right.
I got one thing here. I had two wrestlers placed in the state. Shaden Carr from Oak Ridge got 8th at 160 pounds, and Evan Glines from Vista got 4th in the heavyweight division. So I just want to throw those out there.
Shout out to them. I mean, what isn't Folsom good at, Matt? I mean,
well, that was Oak Ridge and Vista, but that was.
It's still. I mean, still though, what are they not good at? I feel like they're good at everything too. Where are they putting in the water up there?
Let me tell you, I've been doing this here for 20. Just started my 25th year now. I've been blessed with a lot of good teams, and let me tell you, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. State tournament coverage coming up this week, and then spring sports starting this week as well. So be sure to tune in for all of our coverage. I've been Jordan.
I've been Aaron.
And I'm Matt.
We will see you next time. All right, we now welcome on Division IV Girls Basketball Championship coach Colfax's Rexanne Simpton. First thing I got to ask, I know you've been involved in a few section titles at Colfax, but it's your first one as the head coach of Colfax's girls team. How does it feel?
It feels great. I think, I don't know. I guess it's a big game, but I guess it's just a reflection of all the hard work over the years, and it didn't just start this year, it started years ago. So I guess I get the credit of being the leader, but I think the girls get the credit and all the hard work over the years. It's kind of led up to this,
And
so it feels good.
Good. And with this team, especially with that game, I know Riverbank they took a lead early, and then you got out in front, and then you took a 9-point lead into half. And I was joking with someone, I heard someone for Riverbank say, that wasn't our best first half, and we're only trailing by 9. And I almost thought to myself, like, well, that was one of the worst offensive first halves I've seen Colfax play, and they're leading by 9. So
I was pretty confident going into half that we were going to be able to make adjustments and make some shots. We didn't hit very many shots, and no, we didn't have our best first half. I think we came out of halftime or going into halftime like, hey, we're lucky to be up 9 the way we just played. Let's take care of business the second half and put this game out of reach like we know it should be.
And it definitely feels like, with your team, Riverbank had a time, I think in the fourth quarter, where they cut it to a single score deficit. But, looking around your guys' sideline, the crowd, anyone who's seen Colfax play, felt like Riverbank could have taken a lead in the fourth quarter, and there would have never been any doubt that you guys were going to come away with the win there. What do you think that is as a testament to your team's kind of preparation and confidence that, there are a lot of teams that might unravel when their opponent goes on a run late in the game, but your guys' team, you're like, we're confident that we can hang on to this, and you did, and you put them away and came out with an 18-point win.
I think, we went into this game telling ourselves that there's no person, no team too big for us to handle. And so that was kind of our mind frame. And I think it helps having some senior leadership who's been there and been in this situation and knew what it felt like last year. And there was just no way. It didn't matter. Basketball games are about runs, and teams are going to go on runs, and we just have to sustain the runs and gather ourselves. And that's kind of what my girls did. They just kind of answered.
And then now this team moving up to Division III, I think a lot of people kind of expected that was going to be the case. I think most people were just, especially with Colfax fans, were probably just hoping it wasn't going to go all the way up to D2. But, you did draw a Division II opponent that moved down to D3 in that first round. I know when you get to this point in the season, when you're talking about the top 16 teams in the state in any given bracket, everyone is a very, very good team. I know brackets came out yesterday, but have you gotten to watch much of Christopher? And if you have, what do you kind of think is the key to winning in this one?
Yeah, I've definitely watched quite a few of their games now, and I think we just need to play our game. And I mean, I think that's what I think. Again, also like what you said, at this point, no matter who you're playing good teams. We just want to represent our section and go out and give it our all. And I think if we do that and we play poised and play our game, I think that we will come up on top.
And then, one last one. I know when everyone thinks of Colfax girls basketball, 12 section titles, nothing to scoff at, and they know how good this team is. But it's been 40 years since there's been a state championship banner for girls hoops hung in that gym. What's it going to take down this stretch to hang another banner up in that gym?
Honestly, I just think it's one game at a time. We can't lose our focus. We just have to not look ahead and just focus on who we're playing in the moment, and then afterwards take care of business. But it's definitely in the girls' mind. They're already a part of the Colfax history and they want to continue that. And that's our ultimate goal. So we're just going to take it one day at a time.
And then one last thing too, I know that the Colfax girls basketball, like you said, the history is impressive. And, you have a couple 4-year starters on this team, or 4-year varsity players, I guess. And then your JV team goes 20-4 and 14-0. So, no matter what happens this year, it feels like you guys are just reloading again next year. What do you think the key to running a program that has that where, the backups almost don't become the backups, they really just become next year's starter?
Honestly, I think it's consistency. I think developing your players, at the lower levels, even before they get to Colfax is really the key. And with COVID, we kind of had a little, there wasn't a lot of feeder programs, the lower levels. I'm talking 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th going in there. And I think that was the case for a lot of teams.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You guys gave us a good problem to have. We talked at the beginning of the week about wanting to have, on a weekly show, section championship coaches. We ended up having, I think, 7 basketball section championships between our Gold Country media areas and 4
Awesome.
coaches on. So you guys helped us represent well. And I'll leave with one last thing. Now that these girls got a little taste of what it's like to play at Golden One Center, where there kind of talks amongst them like, hey, we can be back here in 2 weeks. Like, we want to be back here in 2 weeks.
I think they know that it's one game at a time. And I think ultimately that's in the back of their mind. So we're just going to show up today and practice hard and well, maybe not hard, but just prepare for her opponent and get ready to go.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations again, and looking forward to seeing you hopefully be raising a state championship banner in a couple weeks.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Jam, and we are doing some interviews this week on the show. And first up, he has pretty much every single job known to man out there at Valley Christian Academy. He is the athletic director. He is the head coach of the boys basketball team, the baseball team. He is the jack of all trades. Brad Gunter Jr., how are you doing, sir?
Thanks. Yeah, you can throw janitor in there, floor sweeper, everything else as well. Yeah.
Well, welcome on, and obviously we're getting a lot of coaches on this week because we just had the basketball section championships at Golden One Center, and for the first time in program history, I know that we talked about it. You've gotten to see the girls win the section title almost every year, it seems like, for the last decade.
Yeah.
They've won it 6 times in the last 9 years, but this is the first time that you guys as a program have won it. One question that I didn't get to ask you in the press room is, you guys have been in the championship game before,
Yes.
but you guys gave up like 104 points in that game.
Yep.
Obviously, Waldorf's top 2 players went out in the game. You guys held them to still under 30 points. Just tell me how proud you were of your team defensively to be able to put up that performance that they did, and limit Waldorf to, was like 30% shooting or less than
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. We had, well, real quick, going back to that other game, we had a bad 2.5 stretch in the third quarter in that first section title game that we had. That was actually my son's team. And that was a deficit. That was actually a great system ball game, but we couldn't get past that 3.5 minute stretch in third quarter. This year, we're extremely fast, especially guard wise, and even our bigs are fast. And so we've played great defense, but as you know, it's a risk reward playing the system. And down the stretch, we kept getting better and better against Waldorf. Obviously, we were expecting the game to be us in the 90s and hoping them in the 60s is really what the target was. And then when their 2 players went down, that sort of gave they scored 30 points. In a normal game with their top guys, the goal was us in the 90s, them in the 60s or early 70s. But we had a game plan coming out against them, and our guys perfected it. Because even when the big went up, I think we were up by 20 at that point. And guys defensively were just quick to rotations, quick to our gap or our steal lanes. I was super proud of them. For
anybody that doesn't know what Coach is talking about, the system, he's talking about the Grinnell system, which for the TLDR, I guess, is a high-paced offense, very high tempo with pressure defense and constant substituting out of the players pretty much every minute and a half, 2 minutes. I wanted to ask you, one thing I've never really talked to you about is, when was the moment that you, as a coach, kind of decided, hey, this is what I want to run, and when did you really start kind of seeing the true potential and the success that could have as a coach?
Well, as you know, just to win, it's not about any system. You have to have players, first of all. So whether you're running the system or you're, winning games 36-35, you got to have players. In 2011 is when I switched to the system. I had followed Grinnell entirely. But what was happening is we used to be in Division 5. We were making the Final Four and NorCals. We were running gun. At that time, I had 6'7", 6'8" down low. I had 6'4" guards. I mean, we were putting up points. The problem is when we got to the section finals or section playoffs, my rotation went from 10 or 11 guys all the way down to 6 or 7, because that's just what happens in normal basketball. And my guys worked really hard, and I didn't think it was fair. And the end goal was not a section title, to be honest with you. It was my guys having fun, competing, and working hard, which they did. And so in 2011, I decided to make the full jump. And we've had teams that have had 16 guys on our roster. And we've played in big games where all 16 guys have played and all 16 guys have scored. And so when the season ends, regardless of the section title, regardless of where we finish, the guys are upset because the practices are over. And that's really what it's about for us. And so that's why I made the jump, was more for my players. And I get a ton of criticism. I really do. We don't play defense is what I hear. And Aaron, you've seen us play. We play hard defense. It's just risk reward. The other thing I've heard is we don't rebound. Well, look at the national average on rebounding. We have more offensive rebounds than we do defensive. And then the other thing is steals. We average almost 25 steals a game. 18 assists a game. Every aspect of what we do as basketball, it's just done at an extreme level. And for us, you want to win a game 45, 44, or 105 to 40, 104. And I've just chosen as a coach to go 105, 104. It's just a lot funner.
It definitely brings some eyeballs out there. That's for sure.
Yes, it does. But it's a blast. And my kids love it too. They absolutely love it.
One thing I think that's so impressive just about the program and the school over there is, you guys have, 110, 115 kids. And, you obviously now have gotten, a couple days to digest your team winning. You've now gotten about 24 hours to digest the girls' team winning. I put this in my piece that, there's multiple players on both teams that have sisters or brothers that are on the boys and girls team. Just, as an athletic director of the program, just tell me how cool the story that is, just being able to witness, all these kids who are related in many ways. And, obviously you have a couple of nieces on the girls team. Just tell me how cool as a family that is, just to be able to witness that.
I'll tell you, it's been the history of VCA. If you look through rosters throughout VCA history, it's the same. You get to see brothers and sisters competing. One plays at 6, the other one plays at 7:30 on a game night. And then now we're to the point where we have alumni kids that I am coaching. And so to watch these kids go through elementary and middle school and high school, and then to see them as a family unit in our game, you looked up in the stands and it was our girls basketball team that was cheering us on. Well, there's relatives in there. And it's the coolest thing ever. As I tell people, we are a small town, like Hills type school or small state type school in the city, and it's got that environment. And to be honest with you, it makes it so enjoyable, and it really brings the family atmosphere, sometimes more than you can on a big campus, just because everybody is connected some way or another.
That's awesome. One other question I have to ask you is, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you're not just the basketball coach or the baseball coach. And, in previous years, you guys would go out earlier and you'd have a little bit more time to prepare for the season. Obviously, now going into NorCal's, you're pretty much just jumping right into it. You've had to cancel. I know you told me a couple of scrimmages and stuff. I mean, just tell me right now, like, how are you kind of starting to get mentally prepared for the transition, especially not knowing when your guys' season is going to end?
Yeah, I tell you, it's every year. This is a fun type of year, and we have been this far. I mean, we've been to NorCal's before, especially in D5. I've been dealing with this transition for a long time. This one is just the first one we've done where we're a section title holder. We're prepared for baseball. Guys are throwing pins. You mentioned we had canceled. You're actually right. We canceled 2 Saturday scrimmages, but we didn't cancel them. That was weather. We were fully prepared to play in that double header, but my assistant coaches were going to have to handle it because I needed to be in the Golden One as administrator for the girls. But we're prepared. Baseball team, we've won 20 league titles, 8 section titles. I have almost everybody back. I think we're missing 2 guys from last year's team that lost 1-0 in the section finals. Our baseball team, we are ready to go right now. And I know that's a shock. We've been practicing in between. I'll go to the baseball field for an hour and a half, and then I head to the gym for an hour and a half. And so it's been exhausting, but it's also the best time of year because it's get your academics done at lunchtime or, late at night after you eat, because we've got this like college type feel right now where it's sports. And it's just awesome. But baseball is actually ready to go. We have a home game Friday against Kennedy for baseball, and that game is scheduled in between when possible NorCal's could be. If you look at our baseball schedules, we always do it around NorCal's, and we're like crossing our fingers that we're playing a NorCal game on one night and a baseball game the next day.
That's awesome. Last question I have to ask you, when I was, interviewing Kim in the press room yesterday after they won the section title, she said that, she couldn't let you one up her. I got to ask you, who's making it further in NorCal? Is it going to be you guys or is it going to be the girls team?
To be honest with you, boy, that's a tough call. No, Kim's the GOAT on our campus. She's got the best program, so there's no argument for me. The girls have a tougher road. I mean, the boys could get knocked out in the first round, but we're in Division 6. The girls have the tougher road, but they proved versus Bear Heart that they might be able to handle that tougher road. Gosh, I hope we're even. As an athletic director, I hope we're even. But if I'd have to say, you got to hand it to our girls. Yeah, it's in the history of our school, it's been the girls that have went the farthest. And so I would, as an athletic director and as a boys coach and a big fan of the girls, I'm not taking anything away from my guys, but I would give it to Kim. Absolutely. And I would be elated if I'm on the sidelines giving her a big hug like I did at the section title game. If she's the last one standing, we're okay with that. We are absolutely. It's all about VCA right now. It's not about who gets a win over the other one.
Awesome. And I love that about you guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing how far you guys can make it, and hope to maybe see you guys in the finals again.
Absolutely. Hey, I just want to say thank you, Gold Country Media, especially you, Aaron Jackson. Thanks for covering the small schools in VCA. And as you know, we're rooting on everybody in Placer County. So let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Coach, and best of luck going forward.
Thanks, Aaron.
You bet.
All right, we have with us here on the Jam this week the coach of the Folsom Lady Bulldogs, section champions. How's that sound, Coach?
Awesome. Very
Hey,
good.
Going back to last year, when you guys lost to Oak Ridge, I know how disappointing that was. And, from that point forward, the goal was to win it this year. And with that comes some pressure. I mean, that's a big goal to have to finally to have achieved that goal. How are you feeling right now?
Wonderful. I think for our team, they state their goals at the beginning of the year, and it was winning league and winning sections and getting into the open. That's some pretty lofty goals. Very disappointing last year. I don't know if that loss will ever leave us based on who it was we were playing against and how the game ended.
Yeah.
But to have that whole the desire to come back and try it again and getting there, because it got a little worrisome for me when we played. I think it's our second round game, or in the sections where we weren't looking very jubilant after we won, and the girls were like, "We're waiting to play McClatchy," right? So I think that they knew they were pretty good, but it is a lot of pressure when you play all those games and you're just waiting to the moment and then take advantage of it. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, very, very, very proud of our girls.
Yeah. And we've talked all year about how good your team is and why it's good and the strengths of the team and, talent. Obviously you got your top player, Cameron, who just makes everything go, and you have shooters, depth, team chemistry. And could you just talk about those things and, what makes your team so tough?
Well, I think we're so balanced. We've got all the pieces. We've got people who can handle the ball, shoot it, size, great defensive ability, and chemistry to connect it all together. And I think it doesn't have to be you're not relying on the same person every night. And as it showed at the section championship with Dixie McClanahan, who played just a few minutes game prior, comes in and plays big, or Natalie Munoz or Brooklyn Perry. We haven't had teams that have that kind of depth that are ready when their name's called. And McClatchy, Aaron Bright came in and had a huge game for us. So it speaks volumes for them being invested in the team first, which is not always easy to get, and we've got it this year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, players are willing to sacrifice their playing time for the betterment of the team, and I would think that's incredibly rare.
It's difficult, and it doesn't come overnight. It doesn't. I mean, we work on it every day, because that's hard. It's hard for anybody to deal with. You don't know if you're going to play a lot or none. Some have experience not playing at all, and can't say you want to get used to that. But we want people to want to play. We also want people to know that it's about the team more so than the individual. Matter of fact, our assistant coach Brian Brown had a picture of the Kansas City Chiefs running back at the last practice where he in the Super Bowl, where he took a knee at the 1 yard line instead of scoring a touchdown. And he wanted to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but the team needed him to kneel down and then run out the clock, and that's for the team, not for the self.
Right. And okay, so now you're at NorCal, and obviously NorCal, it's the best of the best, and every team on that list is a big name. I mean, you played Salesian earlier this year. What can you talk about? What do you remember about that game?
I remember Salesian is very skilled, and they have a deeper roster. With St. Mary's, their roster is not as deep, but what they've got is really powerful.
Right.
So it's a different dynamic. You got to stop the really star players. Salesian has more balance. They got a lot of shooters and they play fast. When we beat them in the Bay, we were trailing the entire game until the last 3 minutes. So it's not going to be easy. We're glad we're at home.
Yeah.
We hope we have that crowd that we had against McClatchy. We had a great environment that night. If we can bring that out, I know Salesian is going to bring a lot of people. And they're a class act. I love that. Coach is awesome. Awesome. So we look forward to playing them. And it's being in the Open and a game that, is a toss-up. That's a great thing because the Open is loaded with national power. So
Right.
one game at a time.
Not that you're overlooking Salesian by any stretch, but do you know anything about Piedmont? I mean, I've never even heard of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually scrimmaged them as the very first day that we could scrimmage in November.
Okay.
We scrimmaged Cardinal Newman, Piedmont, I think it's Branson, and down at Cardinal Newman High School, and they beat us in a scrimmage. They're really talented and really physical. But again, it's one of those opponents that if we were able to win against Salesian, it's a game that we can compete in.
Yeah. And then, of course, you're familiar with the other two, Mini and Clovis West. That if you were to get that far, I mean, that would be a monumental task there, huh?
Yeah, well, for us, I didn't finish the statement on the goals. The goals were win league, win sections, and win an opening round game in Open. We've never won a game in the Open.
Okay.
So if we can beat Salesian, I mean, that would be further than we've ever gone at Folsom High. And then, we just go see what we can do. At Clovis West, we played them 2 or 3 times. There's no intimidation there.
Yeah.
So Mitty's a beast. Mitty's really good. So Clovis West, it's funny the open round of playoffs, the way they got it structured, the best of the best don't even get to play. They're just sitting around all week practicing. So it's kind of, I'd like to see some improvements on the structure, and I'm sure those teams would rather be playing than practicing all week. And I'm sure those players would rather be playing.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Well, that's all I had for you, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day.